Thank you, Shashi. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anindya Sharma, and it is an honor to welcome a visionary entrepreneur and a global leader, Jay Chaudhry. Born in a small village in India, Jay's journey is a powerful example of what resolve in education can achieve. Jay is a graduate of Indian Institute of Technology, Varanasi. Over the years, Jay has founded many successful technology companies. Jay is the founder of and CEO of Zscaler, a company that specializes in cybersecurity. From the humble beginnings to scaling a multi-billion-dollar business, Jay Chaudhry's journey is one of vision, resilience, and impact. IIT 2026 is honored to present Lifetime Achievement Award to Mr. Jay Chaudhry. Please join me in honoring and welcoming Mr. Jay Chaudhry.
I'm very honored, I'm very humbled to receive this prestigious award and have the opportunity to share my thoughts, my ideas, my learnings with you. Okay. Let's get started. You know, sometimes I wonder if my life is real or I'm simply dreaming. Because when I was born in a small village in the Himalayas, and we got electricity after I finished my 8th grade, running water after I finished my 10th grade. You know, many times people ask me, was the life tough? Was it wonderful? You know, we knew nothing better than that. Life was actually a wonderful, happy life. And one of the biggest things I learned in my childhood was to work hard. My parents were small-scale farmers. They worked hard. So 3 things I learned from my parents was honesty, integrity, and hard work. And I have cherished them, and I try to pass it on to my kids because they matter the most. Many times people make plans in life. They got lots of plans. I actually had none of these plans for any of the startups. Okay. My life is maybe a bunch of opportunities that came along the way. I just took advantage of them. I latched onto them. I took some risks. I worked hard, and good things happened. In fact, I got into IITs by accident. I was a good student, so the number one thing that worked for me was I worked hard. I enjoyed learning. I was always number one in my school, my district, my state, and I was going to do engineering because they used to say either you do medical or you do engineering. I did not want to deal with blood, so I said engineering it is. Okay. And then I got into IIT program by accident. I had no idea when I was doing my pre-university that IITs existed. Okay. It was a small college in Una district. And we had an English professor one of whose relatives worked at IIT Delhi. And one day this professor was meeting his relative and said, hey, I have a very good student who is doing pre-university, he'll go in engineering. And this person asked me, oh, is he applying for IITs? And my professor said, what is IITs? Okay. So that's how I got exposed, and then I got there. I didn't know about JEs. So I was number 1 rank holder in my university, so I got there. And I took my major was taken by accident. I didn't know what major to take. There was electrical, civil, mechanical, and I said, this electronics sounds good. Electronics dealt with television, radios, radar kind of stuff. And that's how I got into IIT BHU. It was a wonderful place, I probably got a bigger shock to go from my village to IIT BHU than coming from BHU to US, because at BHU, everyone came from Bombay and Chennai or Delhi, so they all knew about everything. And it is wonderful learning. Education was wonderful. So Indian government has done so well with IITs. It's like, I mean, if it was that expensive at that time, I probably would have never gone there. At that time, our tuition fee used to be about 150 rupees per year, and that was waived as well. So I owe a lot to India, Indian systems of education and the like. And then, like most students who would say, we want to come to US for master's degree, and I said, I want to go to US as well. The only thing was I had to make sure I could get admission with full scholarships because my parents couldn't pay a scholarship. And that worked well. UC, University of Cincinnati, offered me a great scholarship. I almost missed coming to the US because I didn't think that buying a plane ticket would cost a lot of money. There's no banks and no loans, so I almost gave up. Then it kept on bothering me. I kept on researching. So persistence is one of the key things. If I want something, you keep on going after it. You work hard, you go the extra mile. If you keep on doing, you find ways, things happen, right? But you need to have a little bit of conviction. You need to have desire to do it, right? So one day I stumbled across this paper called Tata Loan Scholarship for Indians to Study Abroad. Okay, huh. So it's because of that, right? It was great. I applied, I got it, and the scholarship was one-way ticket and $200. And they said, please return this money so we could give it to the next student. It was wonderful. So I got to Cincinnati. Just like every student, I worked hard. I got my master's in computer engineering. And I'd done a summer job in a small startup in Cincinnati. And they said, oh, please finish your degree and come and work for us. We'll give you a green card. Okay, what else did we want at that time, right? So I worked for this small company. I was doing software development for healthcare, financial management systems. And one day, the only sales engineer we had in the company called in sick, and there was a customer demo lined up. And my boss said, you wrote this system, why can't you do a demo? I was 24 years old at that time. And I had never talked to a customer ever, forget about doing a demo. I prepared, the demo went well. And as I drove home that evening, I said, that was a lot more fun than writing code all day long. Okay. So that was a new idea for the first time to say, I can probably move away from writing code and move to the business world. So I went back to school part-time, did my MBA, and then I called IBM in Cincinnati itself. And they said, oh, we want people with technical background in sales because we're competing with HP and digital computers. So I moved to sales in IBM in Cincinnati, probably the best sales training one could get. So that was my transition from the engineering world to the business world. Probably the biggest thing I learned moving out of engineering was, in engineering, everything is black and white almost. Is right answer or wrong answer. In the business world, they're all kind of shades of gray. Okay, how do you deal with that kind of areas is probably the biggest learning I did in IBM. So from IBM, I went to NCR, I moved to, did international marketing. Unisys took me to the next level where I ran sales and marketing. So I kind of moved to the whole business side, which is very helpful. If I hadn't chosen that path, I probably wouldn't have done startups because now I had the technical side, I had the business side, I was getting comfortable. And Atlanta was essentially my one of the small public companies where I learned how to deal with business. And then I moved to the Silicon Valley. Now the startup world, how did that come about? There's no big plan for startups overall. I love to study, I love to read everything I can. So in '96, I was reading about internet. You know, Mozilla browser was just launched. We were all building websites, and I was fascinated by it. And Mark Andreessen has taken this company public, Netscape. And I said, wow. I read about it. I was fascinated. I said, wow, without any special software, you can actually use a standard browser and access the information. This is wonderful. This technology got to take off, and if it does take off, all of us will be connected to the internet. That means there'll be exposure out there. Cybersecurity could become an issue. And the first time I thought, if this young guy who had just finished his bachelor's and recent, if he could do a startup, why shouldn't I do a startup? Was a crazy idea. Okay. My wife, Jyoti, who has played a very, very critical role in all of these startups, okay, and she and I would talk, and I would say, I need to go do a startup, and she would say, come on, it's not that easy. So I put a business plan together to do a security services company, thinking that security will be needed in the world. And I don't know how to write a good plan. There's no experience, none of that stuff. I took it to 8 or 10 VCs in Atlanta, and all of them said, what startup experience do you have, right? So they all turned it down. Okay. And this was kind of going through conviction, say we got to do it. But I had done so much research in this area from whatever I could find. My conviction was building and building that I got to do it. This is where I'll share my thoughts. Lots of people wish to do things, okay? But if you don't have a burning desire, you never succeed, okay? And burning desire comes from knowing, learning, doing, figuring it out, being close to it. That's one of the things that has helped me in my life. So at that time, I was figuring out everything was cyber, what not. And I was building conviction that I got to, this is needed in the market. And the more I did it, and Jyoti could see that I was really getting obsessed with it. And I said the only way we could do a startup is if you put our life saving on the line and give it a shot. Okay. And after a debate of a couple of weeks, she said, you should go after it because there's so much conviction around it. That was it. Now, how did we make that decision? It seemed like tough, and it was. But this is the decision-making point. What's the worst thing that can happen? The company fails. We lose our savings. Okay. And the question was, could we find a job again? There's a lot of confidence. Of course we're going to find a job. Then go. I mean, that's how this thing happened. I think perhaps I naturally have a little bit inclination for taking risk and being able to do this stuff. In some ways, Jyoti balanced me. She's more conservative. I'm a little more here. And when I'm ready to jump off the cliff, she can tell me, hold on, not quite yet. Good balance existed. So we moved on. We put our life saving. And for the other thing was, it takes a lot of money to do startups. And Jyoti comes from finance background, and she had done MS in information systems. So I said, why don't you quit your job as well, so we don't have to hire someone? It's free resource. But we ended up kind of it's like burning the bridges. There's no turning back. You go. Okay. We had some good expertise, focus, resources that business took off. And then Verizon comes and acquires us, and stock goes through the roof. It just worked so well. And I said it must be a fluke because startups are supposed to be hard. This was easy. Okay. So let's do it again. And this time we didn't go to any VCs. We kind of said, we are going to do it ourselves, but we can only put so much money in one company. Let's do multiple companies, but stagger them like having kids, 1 or 2 or 3 years apart. So we ended up doing 3 companies together. Right? One was in e-procurement using ASP, as an ASP service, one for email security, one for wireless security. The common trend was you look for new areas where no one else has gone before, right? You get a first mover advantage. Now, obviously, there's risk in there. If you start too early, you starve. If you start too late, you become a me too. So there's a little bit judgment call needed. And when you do something, the first mover advantage, there's no IDC data out there. If it's IDC data, you're not a first mover person out there. So a lot of this happened by understanding the market, by knowing the customers and like. So that's really what we did. So we ended up doing these 3 companies. Good luck, good timing, great teams. They all became successful and got acquired by large companies. That took me to Zscaler. And as a stage in my life now, I did not want to do one more startup and sell it. We want to do something big, something lasting. And that's when we came with this idea in 2007, 2008 was the time frame. And sometimes people say, hey, how did you think of this cloud security that early? There was really nothing rocket science about it. If you think of the time frame, we are all using internet as a big source of information. I've been using NetSuite and Salesforce since year 2001 for all of my startups. It made so much sense that SaaS companies will make sense. And AWS had just launched compute as a service, storage as a service. Apple had just launched iPhone with a big screen. If applications are everywhere, if data is everywhere, and you are everywhere, where are you going to put all these firewalls, all the stuff? So the idea was to think outside the box, think very differently. And that's where main innovations come. Many times, entrepreneurs like to build something and say, this is 20% better, 30% better. You aren't going to succeed against those big companies because in the next 6 months, 12 months, they'll get 20, 30% better. So I like to think in terms of the transition of technologies, what I call the waves of technologies, the mega waves. Internet came and created opportunities, mobility came, cloud came. So what we took advantage of Zscaler was when applications moved to the cloud, SaaS happened, networks changed, security changed. And here we want to do security very differently. So a lot of companies that succeed, Salesforce succeeded because they went in first mover in this area and really did a lot of great work. And now a lot of AI is coming. I call it a giga wave because it's really, really changing. Lots of stuff is changing everything out there. And this is probably a big opportunity. I mean, it's going to shake up lots of things. Lots of new companies will be born and lots of established companies will disappear. And there's so many use cases of it. Everyone is trying to figure out what needs to be done. And after all that stuff, everyone worries about cyber and resilience, right? Because AI is kind of fascinating. It creates some big, big risks out there. All these lovely agents we talk about, right? They can do all kinds of wonderful work, but there are lots of issues around it. Every day we see these issues. And then you're seeing interesting players out there. Look, Anthropics. They've been announcing some of these things week after week out there. Anthropic announced their Claude Code for COBOL, security, all this stuff is happening. In fact, the market hype is so big that the companies are losing their market back 15, 20%. When was it last week? They announced Cloud Design and Adobe and Figma of the world take a big hype. Now, market overreacts overall a little bit. In most cases, these so-called smart investors, right, they do a mob mentality. Everyone goes this way. Everyone goes this way. So you just need to be patient. You need to focus on what we're doing and how do we make it happen. Now, Cloth Mythos got announced. I'm sure all of you have been reading about it. You can't miss it. It's in every news item. This is a new model that can literally find security vulnerabilities very, very easily. So we are part of the preview program where they gave us advanced models to really check to make sure we can patch all those vulnerabilities and the like. So, but this thing keeps on happening. Now, this further creates a need for having better cyber and whatnot. So the notion we started out to give you an idea how we think about it. A typical corporate environment looks like a network like this. In fact, so what you see is complicated network security, firewalls, and all this kind of stuff. Our dream was, if we keep on building all these firewalls to create these moats and all, it'll be almost impossible. Let's do the following. Let's not build a better firewall. Let's not build any firewall at all. So our goal was that we're going to assume everyone is untrusted, and we're going to build literally a switchboard, an exchange, a policy engine, totally opposite of anything that has been done before. In old days, when you wanted to talk to someone, you call the switchboard and say, I want to talk to John. The switchboard connected to John and John only. Then you call, say, I want to talk to the Prime Minister of India. They say, sorry, you're not allowed to. The connection got dropped. So at the end of the day, a user needs to access applications. Rather than building all these walls around, we build a switchboard. You connect here based on identity and policies. Fairly simple concept. And that's where we started. First started with users, then we extended to branches, IoT, OT devices, workloads. And now there'll be tons and tons of AI agents out there. Agents are like digital workers. Today, a user is the weakest link from cyber point of view. Tomorrow, agents will be the biggest link, okay? Biggest risk. Except that they will be more dangerous because they can act in milliseconds. They don't need sleep. They don't need any coffee break. They don't need vacation or weekends, okay? So it's natural for us to be able to extend what we're doing for this kind of areas. So that's what we are really building today. About 45% of Fortune 500 companies are our customers. We're a pretty global company. We have big presence in India, very proud of it. And in my previous companies, I did a little bit in India. When Zscaler started, I said, I want to do whatever can be done in India. Let's do it in India. So we opened the Bangalore office before we opened the Silicon Valley office, actually. Okay. Today, just shy of 40% of our actually total number of employees are in India. It takes a lot of work to find the right people. But once you find the right people, they're very, very good. So we have all functions in India. I used to think that India is only good for doing the stuff for sales. It'll be not a big market, and it used to be a relatively small market. But 5 years ago, India was number 13 by sales for us globally. And in the past 5 years, moved up to number 5. Okay. Lots of businesses growing, they're competing on the world scale, so it's great to see lots of things happening in India. And also one of the things we experimented was, why not go to tier 2 cities? Almost like Silicon Valley experience. Silicon Valley, there's a lot of sense of entitlement, hard stuff. Let's open a development center in Raleigh or Atlanta. It makes it a lot easier. So in India, I said, we're going to try Chandigarh this time. And we got the largest office in Chandigarh. Okay, when you hire young people from college and experience, and they're driven, things happen. I would go early on and say what these young kids, they lack in experience with makeup, with passion and drive, and to make it happen. It's great to see all that stuff happening in India. We got very, very good presence and lots of good things happening there. Let's switch gears to a little bit some of the lessons learned, what I have learned from some of these things. Again, these things kind of evolve and change. In general, ability to take risk is important. If you want to stay too safe, you never make progress in life. It's okay to try, test some things. Most things in life you can change. You can course correct. That's very important. And probably for us personally, for Jyoti and I, we never had attachment for money for some reason. So if we did, we wouldn't have taken a chance to put a life saving and start this company. Okay. And it's actually helpful. Then you're able to go and do the right thing. Because at the end of the day, there's only so much money one needs. You know, when I went to India first time after staying here for 4 years, it was hard to go back and forth, at time expensive. Somebody asked me in my high school, I went to my high school, I have lots of attachment for my schools and all. And the student said, how happier is an average American as compared to an average Indian? I never thought about something like that. I thought for a second, then I said, an average American is a lot richer than an average Indian, but I'm not sure an average American is any happier than average Indian. And I still believe that. I mean, you need some basic things, but happiness, it's all state of mind, it's all here at the end of the day. Okay. So moving back to the business side of it, so this is team the number one. Number one before that team was selecting the right area for starting. If you're trying to be me too in a cluttered market, you're not going to get anywhere. The areas of disruptive technologies I talked about makes a big difference. You catch those waves, you really do start up in something that disruptive, something that others haven't done. It gives you architectural advantage. Okay. Number two is team. And the founding team is very important. Founding team is weak, you won't get off the ground. But people who have passion, who have drive, who want to make a difference, right? Hungry rising stars is what I look for rather than seasoned and experienced people. Experience is generally overrated too much out there. People who have desire, they make it happen. That's really what we look for at the end of the day. So a core team of people is important. People who are doing startup to get rich quick are often disappointed. But if you really believe in something, you want to solve those problems, you want to make it happen, things happen. We have been fortunate. We have great teams. They work well together. Things happen. And many times, it ends up being large companies, small company. The bigger the company, generally a little bit mediocrity comes in, more politics comes in. Sure, you need people with seasoned experience, but many, many times people think that somebody coming from a large company is going to solve all the problems. Not really. Okay. You need people who can roll up their sleeves, who make things happen. That becomes very, very important. Culture, very, very critical, right? Now, culture is what I call the aggregate result of our behavior. Having a culture, a sense of urgency, taking risk, failing fast, getting things done, rather than trying to please upwards. Hands-on execution, no politics, leading by example, being out there, right? If you're leading a company, everyone looks at what you do. As they say, just like with kids, they don't do what you tell them to do. They see their parents watch and learn from it. Similarly, in leadership role, people are looking at how you're behaving, how you're happening. So if you are out in the front, you're driving to build the culture of take action, making it happen, it has been very helpful for us. For success, it has been very, very important. Technology versus sales and marketing out there. Almost all entrepreneurs believe that their technology is the best technology. And it's okay, they're biased, it's a baby. But sales and marketing are extremely critical. Quite often, the best technologies are outsold and outmarketed. Okay. So get out there. I like to say, if a CEO is the first salesperson in the company, if you can't go and sell, how do you expect anyone else to sell? Right? So I spend a lot of my time with customers, learning, figuring out all that engagement. It's so exciting to see your product is doing the stuff. They give you lots of ideas out there, right? And really focus on growth, getting things done. Try to stay from all this balance, right? People like to balance this, balance that. At the end of the day, it's all happiness is all here, right? I often am traveling, I'm out there, people say, hey, you must be crazy after a week-long trip to Europe. I said, man, I come back, I'm on cloud 9. When you have so many great meetings, great customers that tell you how excited they are, how you're solving the problem. It's all wonderful. I mean, you don't get tired because of work. You get tired because of boredom. When you're having good time, you're never tired. You want to go after that, right? That's the mindset, right? And lots of people, lots of internal meetings, this and that, and less focus. I mean, we drive execution, we drive action, and let's make things happen. CEO, right? The buck stops at you, right? It's a lonely job, right? You figure out, you make calls. The bigger the company, the more your decisions have big implications on life and savings of people. I've always looked at in every company, I've gone and hired new people from outside, some from previous people, taking a chance to get to new people, expanding your circle is important. Everything may not work out in life, but that's okay, right? And not having a team, that's a team of yes people, yes. You need some contention, you need some really challenging things. I like to say, if you and your leaders are always yes, yes, one of you is not needed. Okay. I mean, think of if you're two strong-minded people, if you're aligned all the time, something is wrong, right? You need to be able to challenge ideas. Open communication is part of our culture. It needs to be like that. And then also, a sense of constant improvement is fundamental for us. Being able to question things. Probably one of the most important things I learned in life is to be self-confident and self-critical at the same time. You need confidence and conviction to move forward and make decisions. You can't be second-guessing yourself. But at the same time, many times people get so confident, they get cocky, okay? They get complacent, okay? And when you're being self-critical, looking and say, what could I do better? Is it good? That doesn't mean you don't have confidence. That means you're looking for improving. You're looking for making things better and better. And those things maybe sense of improvement could be for work. It could be in personal life too. It's the same principle, right? I generally spend 15 to 30 minutes every Saturday morning reflecting on where did I screw up last week? Where did I do good? What could be done? And this could be for family, this could be for work, this could be any of the stuff. It kind of keeps you grounded. It keeps you a sense of purpose, a sense of what could be done better. And then often people talk about raising money or selling a company. I haven't gone into this for too long because I haven't really done much of this stuff. I couldn't raise money, so then I never needed to raise money after that. But it's really to be able to do these things when you're in a position of strength, raising money when you don't need it, right? Selling when you need to sell the company. Some of those things are important, and being frugal with being better resources. Many times you see startups, they raise lots of money, they feel great about raising lots of money. No, it's a liability. It kind of screws up the culture. People say that you raised $100 million. Everyone wants these mahogany desks and fancy buildings and all this stuff. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what you build, how happy your customers are, all those things matter the most, right? So those are my thoughts overall. But it is wonderful opportunity to see you. It's great to see how much contribution IITs had made to India and the rest of the world, okay? And we have the obligation, responsibility to really go and do something back in India. I'm trying to do my part, and let's all of us should do our part. In some ways, some of the current administration policies are good for India, for reverse brain drain. I think India has done a lot in many areas. I think the new opportunities, the AI opportunities, the semiconductor, all the stuff happening is very encouraging. The Modi government has been wonderful to see. When you talk to folks like IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw or Piyush Goyal, these are smart, business-savvy leaders who are willing to help and take the country forward. I was in Davos in January where Ashwini Vaishnaw had organized a meeting for lunch. As part of the meeting, he brought all these semiconductor companies leaders and said, tell me, what can we do to attract you to India, to come back and set up shops in India? I think those are great, great policies. And it's always good to look back and say, that's the country I came from. And we've done well, so let's keep in mind that we give back to the degree we can. With that, thank you for listening to me. I hope you found it useful. Okay.